Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to tackle a really fascinating topic, one that's been the subject of countless books, documentaries, and expeditions.
It's a legend that's captured imaginations for centuries, and it takes us high into the Himalayas,
That's right. We're talking about the mysterious Yeti.
also known as the Abominable Snowman.
Exactly. Today we're going to go beyond the usual internet rumors and really try to unpack the history, the sightings, and the possible explanations for this elusive creature.
And what's particularly interesting is that we're going to do this deep dive without relying on, just doing a quick internet search. We're going to look at firsthand accounts, historical records, scientific studies, the real deal.
Yeah, no shortcuts here. We're going deep. So, to kick things off, let's start with the basics. What exactly are we talking about when we say Yeti?
Well, the Yeti is often depicted as a large ape-like creature said to roam the high peaks of the Himalayas.
Okay, so think, big, hairy, walking upright, leaving those massive footprints in the snow.
Exactly. It's an image that's both fascinating and a bit frightening, right?
For sure. Those footprints always kind of creep me out as a kid. But I think what's interesting is that the Yeti actually has another name, one that you might be more familiar with.
You're talking about the Abominable Snowman, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that term, while catchy, is actually a bit of a misnomer. It came about in 1921 thanks to a journalist who took some creative liberties when translating local accounts.
Ah, so Abominable Snowman is more of a media creation than an accurate translation.
Pretty much. It definitely paints a more dramatic picture, though, doesn't it?
For sure. But, this fascination with mysterious ape-like creatures isn't just limited to the Himalayas. I mean, we have Bigfoot here in North America, right?
Absolutely. There seems to be a global fascination with these sorts of elusive beings.
Right. But what sets the Yeti apart is its deep-rooted history in Himalayan culture. We're not talking about some recent fad here.
Not at all. Its story goes back centuries, even millennia, long before it caught the attention of the Western world.
So let's rewind the clock a bit. What are some of the earliest beliefs and stories about the Yeti?
Well, before the expeditions and the famous photographs, the Yeti was already a part of the pre-Buddhist beliefs of various Himalayan cultures.
So we're talking ancient folklore here.
Exactly. Take the Lepcha people, for example. They didn't just view the Yeti as a mythical creature, they actually worshipped a glacier being as their god of the hunt.
Wow, so the Yeti was like a deity to them.
Precisely. It was a powerful symbol in their culture.
Fascinating. So the Yeti wasn't just some monster lurking in the shadows. It actually held a significant spiritual role for some cultures.
That's right. And over time, the Yeti became intertwined with Tibetan Buddhist traditions as well. In fact, Tibetan Buddhists describe three distinct types of Yetis: the Nyamo, the Chuti, and the Rangshambamba.
Three different types of Yetis. Okay, you got to tell us more about this.
Well, the Nyamo is said to be the largest and fiercest, standing at around 15 feet tall with thick black fur.
Okay, that's definitely the Yeti I wouldn't want to run into.
Right. Then you have the Chuti, which dwells at higher altitudes and is slightly smaller, about 8 feet tall. And finally, there's the Rangshambamba, the smallest of the three, standing between 3 to 5 feet tall with reddish-brown fur.
So it's like a whole Yeti family tree. But I think for most people, the Yeti story really comes alive with those 20th century expeditions and the numerous reports of sightings.
Absolutely. That's when the Yeti really stepped onto the global stage.
And these weren't just blurry photos or stories passed down through generations, right? We're talking first-hand accounts from explorers and mountaineers.
Exactly. And some of these accounts are incredibly intriguing. Take N.A. Tombazi, for instance. In 1925, he was high up near the Zimu Glacier when he spotted a dark figure against the snow, pulling at rhododendron bushes.
Okay, no, that's a visual. What did you think it was?
Tombazi described it as undeniably human-like in its movements, which just adds to the mystery.
Spooky.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing you found those iconic Yeti footprints too, right?
He did. Tombazi described them as being similar in shape to human footprints, but much larger.
So those footprints really are a recurring theme in the Yeti legend.
Oh, absolutely. And they pop up again and again in these accounts. A few years after Tombazi, in 1937, John Hunt and Pasang Sherpa reported encountering similar footprints while approaching the Zimu Gap. It's almost as if the Yeti was leaving a trail of breadcrumbs, inviting further exploration.
Okay, I'm hooked. There must be more stories like this, right? I mean, the fascination didn't just stop there.
Oh, not at all. In 1944, C.R. Cook had an encounter with enormous footprints. I'm talking 14 inches.
Whoa, that's huge.
Right. And these prints, found in soft mud, had a distinctive shape, with the big toe set back, almost like a primate's foot. Cook's porters referred to the creature as Jungli Admi, which means wild man.
Okay, Wild Man, Abominable Snowman. These names definitely capture the imagination, but it's those footprints that really seem to dominate the Yeti narrative.
They really do. And of course, we can't forget the famous 1951 photographs taken by Eric Shipton.
Ah, yes. Shipton's photographs. Those are like a cornerstone of the Yeti mystery.
Absolutely. He captured images of those massive footprints in the snow, even using his ice axe and boot for scale. Those photographs have been debated for decades, with some seeing them as the most compelling evidence for the Yeti's existence, while others argue they're just distorted animal tracks.
Yeah, it's a debate that still rages on today. And speaking of iconic pieces of Yeti evidence, we have to talk about the 1954 Daily Mail Snowman expedition and the story of the Pangbosh scalp.
Oh, yes, the Pangbo scalp. This expedition made headlines all over the world. They discovered this supposed Yeti scalp at the Pangbosh monastery, and it was brought back to London for examination.
Wow, a real-life Yeti artifact. So what did the experts make of it? Did it finally confirm the Yeti's existence?
Well, the scalp was examined by Professor Frederick Wood-Jones, a leading expert in anatomy. He meticulously analyzed the hairs, comparing them to samples from known animals, and his conclusion, well, it was quite unexpected.
Don't keep us in suspense. Was it from a Yeti or not?
Professor Jones determined that the hairs weren't actually from a scalp at all. He believed they were from the shoulder of a hoofed animal.
A hoofed animal. Wow, what a twist. But what kind of creature could have left hairs that were mistaken for a Yeti scalp? This just gets more and more intriguing.
That, my friend, is a question that remains unanswered. But it certainly adds another layer to the mystery, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So if the scalp wasn't from a Yeti, what are the most common explanations for all these sightings? We're talking about misidentification, elaborate hoaxes, or something else entirely.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And like any good mystery, there are multiple angles to consider.
Okay, so let's break it down. What are some explanations that skeptics tend to favor?
Well, one of the most common explanations is the misidentification of Himalayan wildlife. You've got bears, particularly the Himalayan brown bear, which are known to walk upright and can leave large footprints. And then there are langur monkeys, which can be quite large and imposing.
So in a rugged, snowy environment like the Himalayas, it's easy to see how those animals could be mistaken for something more mysterious, right?
Exactly. Especially when you factor in things like poor visibility, fear, and the human tendency to see what we want to see.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the people who believe the Yeti is real? What are their arguments?
Well, they often point to the sheer number of sightings over the years and the consistency of descriptions across different cultures and time periods. It's hard to dismiss the accounts of experienced mountaineers and local villagers who claim to have encountered the Yeti.
Right, it's not like these are just random people making up stories. These are often individuals who know the mountains well.
Exactly. And they argue that it's highly unlikely that so many people from such diverse backgrounds could all be mistaken or making things up.
So we've got compelling arguments on both sides. It's like a scientific tug of war.
Precisely. And to make things even more interesting, there's another theory that throws a wrench into the mix.
Oh, do tell.
This one comes from Reinhold Messner, the renowned mountaineer who famously climbed Everest without supplemental oxygen. In his 1986 autobiography, he proposed that the Yeti is actually a type of Himalayan brown bear.
Wait, Reinhold Messner? The guy who practically conquered the Himalayas? He's got to have some serious credibility when it comes to Himalayan wildlife.
Right. Messner spent a significant amount of time in the Himalayas, immersing himself in the local culture and folklore.
Okay, so what's his reasoning for this bear theory?
Well, Messner argued that many of the Yeti descriptions, particularly the footprints, align more closely with a bear than with an unknown primate. And he was specific about the type of bear, a certain Himalayan brown bear known to walk upright, leaving those human-like prints that have fueled the Yeti legend.
So we have bears, monkeys, and maybe even an unknown primate on the table. How do we even begin to sift through all these possibilities?
That's where science comes in. And in the 1980s, there was an expedition that set out to do just that, and their findings really shook things up.
Okay, another expedition. Tell us all about it. Who, when, where, and what did they find?
All right, so in 1983, a team led by Daniel C. Taylor and Robert L. Fleming Jr. ventured into Nepal's Barun Valley.
The Barun Valley, okay.
And what's fascinating is that their initial findings seem to support the Yeti's existence.
Really? Hold on, what kind of evidence did they find?
Well, they discovered those mysterious hominoid footprints, large tree nests, the kind often associated with the Yeti, and consistent reports from locals about two distinct types of bears in the area.
Two types of bears. Okay, I'm intrigued.
One type was described as smaller and more reclusive, while the other was larger and more aggressive. So initially, it really seemed like they were on the verge of solving the Yeti mystery.
I can imagine the excitement. They must have thought they were about to make history.
They probably did. But as they continued their research over the next 3 years, collaborating with other experts, a different possibility emerged.
All right, now it's getting really good. What did they discover?
Their research suggested that those Yeti footprints might actually belong to, wait for it, young Asiatic black bears.
Wait a minute, baby bears. How could their little paws create those massive human-like tracks we've been talking about?
That's the fascinating part. They observed that young Asiatic black bears spend a lot of time up in trees, and to help them navigate the branches, they develop an opposable grip in their paws.
An opposable grip. Are we talking bear thumbs here?
Not quite thumbs, but their paws adapt to allow them to grasp branches more effectively. And when these young bears come down from the trees, their hind paws sometimes land over their front paws. This creates a footprint that, under certain conditions, can look strikingly human-like.
So you're saying those enigmatic Yeti tracks that have fueled the legend for decades might just be teenage bears messing around in the trees?
It's a very real possibility. And you know what the best part is?
What's that?
This research in the Barren Valley had a significant positive impact. It led to the creation of massive wildlife preserves in the Himalayas, not only protecting the bears, but also preserving the mystique of the Yeti.
So talk about an unintended consequence. We've got ancient legends, thrilling encounters, scientific investigations, and even conservation efforts all tied into this Yeti story. Where do we even go from here?
Well, that's the beauty of the Yeti legend, isn't it? It's a story that keeps unfolding, revealing new layers and possibilities, even as we uncover more pieces of the puzzle.
So what does it all mean? Is the Yeti real? Is it a bear? Or something else entirely?
That's for you to decide. We've explored the history, the sightings, the various explanations. Now it's your turn to weigh the evidence and draw your own conclusions.
Well said. We've given you the tools. Now go forth and explore the mystery further.
But even without that definitive proof, that aha moment, the Yeti has already had a pretty significant impact, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, those expeditions, the searches for the unknown, they've contributed so much to our understanding of the Himalayas, the people, the incredible biodiversity.
It's a great reminder that the pursuit of knowledge, even when it doesn't lead to the answers we expect, can still lead to amazing discoveries.
For sure. It's like those explorers set out to find the Yeti, and they ended up discovering so much more about the world in the process.
Exactly. Which brings us to another really interesting aspect of the Yeti legend.
What's that?
The human element.
Yeah.
The people who live in the Himalayas have been sharing stories of this creature for centuries.
Right. The Yeti isn't just some mythical beast. It's deeply embedded in the culture and traditions of the people who live in those mountains.
Absolutely. Think about it. For generations, the Yeti has been part of their oral histories, their songs, their stories. It's a way for them to explain the unknown, to teach lessons about nature, about respecting the mountains.
It's like the Yeti represents the wildness, the mystery of the Himalayas themselves.
Precisely. It's a symbol of the power and unpredictability of nature.
And it's interesting how these cultural narratives often differ from the image of the abominable snowman that we often see in Western media.
Oh, definitely. That abominable snowman idea is more of a sensationalized kind of Hollywood version of the Yeti.
Right. It's the monster movie version.
Yeah, exactly. But in many local traditions, the Yeti is seen as more of a neutral figure, neither completely good nor completely evil. More like a creature that demands respect, a reflection of the power of the natural world.
So it's not necessarily this terrifying monster lurking in the shadows.
Not always, no. And I think it highlights how our own cultural backgrounds can shape our perceptions of the Yeti and maybe of the unknown in general.
That's a really good point. What might seem scary to one culture might be viewed with awe and reverence by another.
Exactly. And it reminds us that we need to approach these mysteries with cultural sensitivity, to listen to the voices of the people who have lived alongside these stories for centuries.
Because their perspectives can offer valuable insights that we might not have considered otherwise.
Absolutely. Their knowledge can challenge our assumptions and deepen our understanding of the whole story.
It's about approaching the unknown with humility, with a willingness to learn from different ways of knowing and understanding the world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And speaking of different ways of knowing, Let's circle back to those Yeti footprints for a moment.
Okay, those mysterious tracks.
We've talked about how they've captivated imaginations and spurred countless expeditions, but let's dive a little deeper into what makes them so unique.
Yeah, we keep saying hominoid footprints, but what does that really mean?
Well, hominoid refers to the group that includes humans and our closest relatives like apes.
Okay, so primates, basically.
Exactly. So a hominoid footprint would suggest a creature that walks upright on two legs, similar to us, but with some key differences.
And those differences are?
Well, Yeti prints are often described as much larger than human footprints, with a wider stance and longer strides.
And if we think back to those Shipton photographs, the prints had that distinctive shape with the big toe setback, almost like a primate's foot.
Right. That big toe placement is especially interesting because it's a characteristic of primates with an opposable big toe, for grasping branches, climbing trees.
So something you wouldn't typically see in a bear or other animals that have been proposed as explanations for the Yeti, right?
Exactly. Now, this is where the debate gets really interesting.
Lay bonus.
Some researchers believe those footprints could be the result of, unusual circumstances, melting snow, shifting ice, things like that.
So they're saying it's possible the tracks of known animals could be distorted and end up looking like something else entirely.
That's their argument, yeah.
Yeah.
But then others argued that even if the prints were made by bears, the fact that there are so many reports of bipedal movement and the sheer size of the tracks, that's something that can't be easily dismissed.
So it's like every time we think we're getting closer to an answer, we uncover more questions. But honestly, isn't that what makes the Yeti story so fascinating?
Absolutely. It's like a puzzle with missing pieces, and each new discovery just adds another layer of intrigue.
It really does. It reminds us that there's still so much we don't know about the natural world, even in places we think we've explored pretty thoroughly.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the question of how we could definitively prove or disprove the Yeti's existence.
Right, we've talked about video evidence and DNA analysis, but are there other ways to approach this mystery? Other avenues of investigation?
Definitely. One really promising area is the study of environmental DNA, or eDNA.
eDNA. Okay, I'm not familiar with that one.
It's pretty cool. It basically involves analyzing samples of soil, water, even air to detect traces of genetic material that organisms leave behind.
So instead of needing to actually capture a Yeti or find a hair sample, scientists could potentially identify its presence just by analyzing the environment.
Precisely. Imagine collecting snow samples from areas where Yeti footprints have been sighted and then analyzing those samples for traces of unknown DNA. It's a non-invasive way to search for evidence, and it could revolutionize how we investigate cryptids and other elusive creatures.
That's amazing. It feels like we're on the verge of a new era of exploration where technology and scientific advancements can help us unlock secrets that have been hidden for centuries.
It's an exciting time to be a researcher, for sure. But even with all these incredible tools, there's something to be said for the power of observation and the importance of local knowledge.
Right. I mean, those local porters and guides who accompany these expeditions, they often have their own stories and beliefs about the Yeti that have been passed down through their families.
And their knowledge can be invaluable in guiding research, helping to interpret findings, and providing a deeper understanding of the cultural context.
It's a reminder that science and traditional knowledge can work together, complement each other, to create a more holistic picture.
Absolutely. In the case of the Yeti, combining scientific rigor with the insights of those local communities, that might be the key to finally unlocking the secrets of this mystery.
It's about embracing those multiple perspectives, recognizing that the search for knowledge isn't a solitary pursuit, it's a collaborative effort.
Couldn't agree more. And who knows, maybe by working together, we might finally unravel the truth about the Yeti, or at the very least, learn something new and unexpected about the world around us.
Well said. And that brings us to our final thought for this deep dive.
We've examined the evidence, the theories, explored the cultural significance, and the scientific possibilities surrounding the Yeti. But perhaps the most important takeaway is this. The Yeti, whether it's real or a figment of our imagination, invites us to embrace the unknown, to question our assumptions, and to stay open to the possibility that there's still so much out there waiting to be discovered.
It's like a reminder that the journey itself, the search for answers, is just as important as the destination.
Exactly. It's that sense of wonder that keeps us going, that drives us to explore and ask questions and push the boundaries of what we think we know.
And speaking of exploring, for our listeners who are eager to learn more about the Yeti, about cryptids, about all those mysteries of the natural world, well, we've got a little something special for you.
If you're fascinated by this idea of, where science meets folklore, I highly recommend checking out Daniel C. Taylor's book, Yeti, The Ecology of a Mystery. It's a really captivating read that delves into the scientific research surrounding the Yeti, exploring the evidence, the theories, the cultural context, you name it.
It's a perfect example of how scientific inquiry can be so much richer when we consider different perspectives and engage with local knowledge.
Absolutely. And, maybe one of you listening will be the one to finally crack the Yeti code.
Wouldn't that be something? But until then, I guess the mystery continues.
It does. But remember, even if you don't find a Yeti hiding out in the Himalayas, there's still so much to discover out there.
That's right. Whether you're trekking through the mountains or just exploring your own backyard, keep that curiosity alive. Keep asking questions and keep your eyes peeled for the extraordinary and the ordinary.
Because who knows what you might find.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the Yeti. Until next time, keep exploring and happy trekking, everyone.